Alrighty, it's 3 minutes past. I think we're good to make a start.
Excellent.
Okay, hello. For the benefit of those not on the last show and tell, I'm Robert Walker. I'm the Web Officer for South Northants, and alongside Richard Beards of the County Council and George Jenkins from Corby, we make up the three product owners of the Unitary Web project, and I've drawn the short straw this week to give a brief presentation. The picture isn't of either of us three, it's of Kelly Johnson, who you've probably never heard of, but he was an American aeronautical and systems engineer who worked on aircraft designs. He was the person behind the first production aircraft to exceed Mach 3 and the first fighter plane to exceed 400 miles per hour. He worked for more than 4 decades for Lockheed, and he lived by the motto, be quick, be quiet, be on time, and is said to have been an organising genius, a bit like Connolly from our partners Future Gov in that respect. In the pursuit of breakthrough designs, he tolerated errors with the caveat that they were made just once. He asked for hard work, good communication, and unwavering honesty. You could say he invented the agile approach to working. You might think, what has this got to do with a new Unitary websites? Well, he was also the person that coined the acronym KISS, Keep It Simple, Stupid. For too long, councils have been the masters of taking the simple and overcomplicating it, and we're now coming to the end of the 6th week of trying to unravel the complicated and make it simpler, not only for the public, but also for ourselves. Do you want to go to the next screen, please, Connolly? 2 weeks ago, Richard started with this image on the left to illustrate us trying to juggle everything that Future Gov had bombarded us with. And we've now caught what was up in the air, and we're going through each item to make sense of it and try and make sure it's fitting in the right place. Before Future Gov got involved, we were struggling to tell our battens from our balls. Do you want to go to the next screen, please, Connolly? And what should have really been there in the first place. But now we can see exactly what we need to juggle in our sprints through the agile approach. So sit back and enjoy the upcoming presentations of what we've been up to during the past 2 week sprint. I'll hand over to George, who'll be touching on what is being covered in today's show and tell.
Hi guys. Well done, Robert. That was very good. It's going to be fairly simple. Okay, do you want to go to the next slide, please? All right. As you can see there, what we have been doing is had a content workshop where Debo has compiled all the workflow processes for all of our different websites, and we're looking to sort of see which we like, what we don't like, and then what improvements we can do. We've been creating some user stories which will then be used for testing with the customers to sort of see what they think. We also had a deep dive session into Drupal, which was very interesting, where we saw some content types, a bit of the functionality, and looking at the local gov Drupal workstream. And as I said, we've started using the user research, and Anna will tell us a little bit more about that a bit later on. Coming up next, we've got system architecture document is got to be completed and approved. Future content workflow, refine user stories, continue testing, create draft accessibility statement, and agree our MVP priority content. Okay, and anybody got any questions at this point? No? Okay, so this is what these sessions are about, as you probably saw from the last one. It's showing progress early and often, so that you can give some views on it, getting your feedback, and showing the next steps and how people can get involved. Raise your hand if you want to chat. Go on. And these are the people who we are working with, some of which you already know, and here are some new faces.
Okay, thanks very much, George. Hi there, everybody. Just to talk to you a little bit about some of our Sprint 2 achievements. If I could have the next slide, please, Conley. Thank you. I just thought it was worth showing this slide for those of you that weren't here last week. This is our high-level indicative project plan, and as you can see, it's a very high-level plan, but it's split into about 11 different sprints, and sprints are very short work packages of about 2 weeks, where we define the goals that we want to achieve. We look back at what we've achieved, and we look forward to what we're going to be able to be doing in the next sprint. It's a very effective way of working, and I think we're finding this agile approach, as mentioned by Rob, George, and Richard early on. It's been very effective in getting us moving and getting some of our tasks done. It's try it fast, fail fast, and improve, continuous improvement along the way. So we're now just about to enter our 3rd sprint. So we're sort of towards the end of November. In fact, don't scare myself. And we can see where the green marker is here. So we've been doing discovery, define, review, and we're now getting into a bit more of the design development, iterative and test phase. So if I could just move on to the next slide, please. So George has already given a bit of a rundown of some of the things that we've achieved this week, and it's been in the last 2 weeks in the sprint session. It's been a really busy time. It's been busy but very productive. I'll just skim over some of the things as George has mentioned them. We have bi-weekly stand-up sessions. We have a retrospective which looks back on what we've been doing over the past sprint and plans what we do in the next. We've been a lot of meetings have been going on, and a lot of you on this call have been involved in those, so thank you very much for that. And I know some of you will also be involved going forwards, and really looking forward to working with everybody. As George mentioned, we've been looking at user stories. We've also been discussing a website communication strategy and week notes, and how we might basically communicate out not just to our internal customers but also external customers about the progress that we're making. We've looked at user needs with user research workshops. We'll be talking about some of that later. We've had the Drupal workshop. We've got a prototype created. User research plans have been taking place. All the documents produced. We've also been looking at the future content management models, which I know a couple of workshops took place this week. That will be continuing. Within the team, we're looking at all of the needs from our front door needs. So that's basically all the different channels of communications that our customers might contact us by, but websites being a key focus. And we're looking at what we need to have in our minimum sites for day one, and how though the user journeys will take the user or the customer back from those top level sites back into the existing sovereign sites. As part of those discussions, we've been looking also at accessibility and branding and rebranding needs. Thank you very much. I'd like to pass over to Richard to talk about user stories. Thank you.
Thanks, Juliet. So the user stories, a few of us have been working on these. They're basically the requirements that will make up the MVP site, the minimal viable product site. So you can see on that spreadsheet, broken it down to certain service areas and groupings, and it will say as A. So as A is like the audience for that specific requirement. So members of the public, residents, internal staff here, communications, web teams, those kind of things. So it's been a learning curve for us to break these things down. As of yet, we don't know the exact MVP, the requirements that are going to be needed for every single service to go into the first site that we create. So the main focus to start with was around back office team services that we know exactly what we will need. So we looked at the comms team, web team, customer services teams, and we broke those elements down to what would we need. So as a member of the web team, I need to be able to create pages, I need to be able to publish pages, I need to be able to drop different elements like call to actions into pages. So we've been breaking down kind of every element for the requirements that we'll need. Then we looked at customers, what are some of the things that the customers will need. So until we know the actual specific service information, we talked about things like on a mobile, I want it to be quick to load, I don't want any pop-ups, I want to be able to search for information. So we've been listing all of those things out. So on the next slide, in terms of what we found, it was an iterative process for us in putting it together. So we might say to start with, as a member of the web team, we want to create a page, but the end result is the spreadsheet, after it goes through user testing and is sense checked, it gets sent to the developers. So they need to be able to understand from these stories exactly what the outcome is so they can develop against it. So the next iteration for us of these stories will be learning exactly what's in the MVP, so we can put that service information in there and then break the detail down of those stories. So exactly what those pages look like, what we need to do in those pages, what services specifically, what content members of the public need to see, and then we'll start to prioritize them. So we'll have about 250 stories we've got already, and we'll need to break those down and say, this is the actual MVP, this is a must-have for day one. And then once that's sense checked and signed off, we'll pass that over to the developers and they can build that site, and that'll be our locked-in MVP site. So that is kind of the behind the scenes of the user stories. It's an ongoing process. Still got many stages to go with it, but it's going well so far. So I'm going to hand over to Chris, I think, who's going to talk about the prototype creation.
Yes, hi. So yeah, as already mentioned, we wanted to start testing this sprint, and in order to get into things into the hands of users as soon as possible, so that we could start testing. And Ale will talk you through that in a minute. But in order to test our assumptions, we needed an artifact to test with. So one of the things we've been doing this sprint is creating some mock-ups of what the website could look like that we can then test with users. Just to flag, the logos and branding that are used throughout this are the ones that have been revealed recently. They're still subject to approval, but they're announced this week, I think. So it's all live and in use. And I can take you through one of the flows now that we use to test. If you can drop off your Connolly, so I can share. Thank you. And okay. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. So what we wanted to do was test some initial test our assumptions and test the design and some content and everything and information architecture all at once. So what we did was create two simple user flows. So focusing around getting a user to a service that's hosted on one of the legacy sites, and getting a user to a service that's hosted almost entirely within this site. So in the example that we used, we focused around finding bin collection day. So as you can see, we didn't focus too much on the homepage. That's going to come in time, but what we were really focused on was the kind of second and third level pages, the service landing page and the service page themselves, that flow. So as you can see, this for anyone that doesn't know, this was all designed in an app called Figma. It's similar to Sketch. It's a way of designing mock-ups, especially for digital and web and apps. But it's really good for quickly designing things and creating clickable prototypes. So all these are our design screens with, if you can see when I click, hotspots that allow you to link through to other design screens. So none of this is coded, none of this is actually a website. These are just kind of mock-ups, like higher fidelity mock-ups. But as you can see, we going through into a single service, such as bin collection. We've got this sectioned out content, all of the different links that might be needed, and then coming through into the bin collection itself, we have the links through to the four other sites. And just for reference, we tested with this one, but we've also created the exact same mock-up in the branding for the West as well, which you can see here. So the fonts and the colours are all applied based on the brand guidelines that were announced. And in this example, we can take you through into the Corby site. Obviously, There'll be some work to be done in terms of rebranding these sites as well. But just as an example, we've got an example of what could possibly be some personalization involved. So say when a user goes away to a site and then comes back, we could do something like saving their choice as their current local area, allowing them to get to their information much more quickly throughout the site, and obviously providing them a link back. But that's just an example of an assumption that needs testing. The second flow we did was just a simple taking the user through to a complaints form. So in this example, we've just got some other types of pages that show the kind of information and the more kind of text-heavy pages, where there'll actually be things hosted within this site, and then taking you through to a kind of a step flow, which would take you to, at the moment, this is using the same form system as the NCC. But yeah, that's a brief overview of the prototype that we have been testing and plan to continue testing. And I'll pass you now to Ale to talk more about the user testing we've done this sprint.
And Chris, before I share my screen again and share the user testing updates from Ale, you've got a note from Lawrence which says, "Very clean work, love the mock-ups."
Awesome, thank you.
I've got me likey as well from Stephen, which is great. Let me know when you can see the screen, Ale.
Yeah. So this week, in the last week, we've been doing a lot of work to get ready to do some user testing. And eventually this week, we managed to speak with 4 participants, so 4 people. It's all frozen for me. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. I don't see a thing. Okay, now I see. Okay, cool. I think the Wi-Fi is sorted now. But before showing you some early feedback, here is, I'm going to just share with you now a link to a deck. There is this intro to user research, and we went through this deck just to get comfortable about why do we do user research and how, and possibly you could use this deck as reference for any project you might be working on. Basically, it's an intro into the world of interviewing and working with participants, with people to actually understand what they need. So it's a false myth, the one for which we do user research to actually understand what they want, because usually people don't really know what they want. We have to do a lot of work, like synthesis work after the session, to actually understand what they need, what is not working for them. So next slide, please. We created this document. All the links are there as well if you want to have a look. We're going to share them later on as well. But then we created this one that is called like a research plan, where we say what's the goal of the research and how the research will possibly evolve over time, because what we're testing today won't be exactly what we're going to test in 2 months' time. So as of today, we've been testing the prototype that Chris just showed you, and the goal was really to give people some tasks and to get the feedback on how easy or complex was to achieve these tasks. And then another thing we've been doing is that we've been assessing their digital literacy, asking them to fill in a document that is called UN Digital, because overall we would like to get to a good representation of people that have got from low to high digital literacy. So who did we speak to? Next slide, please. So we spoke with 4 people, as mentioned. And these are some of the demographics we know about them, and we know that definitely one participant was working for one of the council as staff in the contact center. And we have been asking things from the ethnicity down to the gender, down to what is their employment status, because of course if they're employed or if they're not, or a student, possibly the services they're going to access are quite different, their age, the local authority they live in, and a disability question. Next question, next slide, please. So this task we've been asking people to perform. The first one was about bin collection. So we asked them, imagine that you live in Corby and you want to understand when the bin collection happens. What would you do? Where would you go? This was a task to understand how people leave the transition from the new website, basically the main homepage and a couple of pages, down to the old website, so the legacy sites. Then the second question was about, imagine you want to file a complaint about something, what do you think you would do? So this was really like an end-to-end journey on the new website. And overall, next slide, please. I would say that we got good feedback. In general, people were comfortable. It was clear for them how to achieve what they wanted to do. There's some confusion for some people about which unitary authority they will have to refer to. So we've been talking about what we could do about it. The bottom right quotes that like this participant wanted a letter to just say you're now part of North or you're now part of West. We'll be talking about transparency on phone numbers. So even though the flow we tested was really on filling in a form, ultimately, like the majority of participants, they were after a phone number to call. And we've been trying to probe why is that? Why do we need to phone somebody? And it goes down to the point of having spoken with somebody, so making sure that somebody is actually listening to you. So we are thinking about how do we actually route people to the form in a very transparent way, and how could we reinforce that even forms are actually answers to the form are actually picked up. Next slide, please. And because one of the participants was actually working in the contact center, we managed to see what is the interface of Halo, that is a platform that they're using to support contact center inquiries. And we've been getting basically like a shadowing experience here, where they showed us how they use the platform and how I'm always getting distracted by my comments. I will see them later, and how the new links will have to actually work well on this platform as well. So in this case, even getting feedback on the form and complaint form, because it's usually one thing that even contact center staff would do, was very handy, and it's something that we would do more of. Would feedback in general be different if the user is a new resident to the country or have been? Yes. So like it might be, or I think the access to the services would be different, or even the fact that they maybe have accessed the website before. So that's why one of the questions that we ask in the screening bit is how long you've been living there, because ideally we would like to have like people that just moved and people that have been living there for a long time, to understand if the performance actually differs. Next slide, please. So overall, 4 out of 4 participants said it was easy to use. One participant had no clue if they would be in the North or West from April the 1st. All participants assumed there was a phone number, as I said. We tested the postcode functionality as well. So there were one of the last page where it says, are you from Corby, and the other 4 areas. And it says, otherwise, the other thing you can do is to enter your postcode. And then, even though we didn't mock it up, we were asking them, what would you do? What do you reckon would happen at this stage? And they all had a clear, the majority had a clear idea about what would happen. So they would actually be redirected to the local authority they live in. And about saving your council feature, everybody said it was successful, even though they were like, is this going to be like the one of the pop-ups you get like on a number of websites, and then actually the website won't remember it, and every time you're asked to do it again. So it's something that we will have to explore a little bit more. So what will happen next? What will happen next? User research, as I said, will be ongoing up to February at least, even though the focus will change over time. So for now, the focus will stay the same. We're going to keep testing the existing prototype up to when we're going to do like new changes on the prototype. Therefore, we're going to change how we test it as well. But please help us recruiting more people. If you think of any suitable, please get in contact with Fiona. And I think now Julie just posted an email address to get in contact. That's it for this session. Let me have a look through the messages. I think it would be good to include contact center from DMB, also user testing. Yes, definitely, it's in our list. We can also ask chain champions if they would be interested in testing. Yes. KBC already have a live chat facility. Will this still be available? I think we had a chat about live chats not being a thing for the minimum viable, didn't we? Chris, Dan, on.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, so for the new sites, we said that we wouldn't be looking at live chat on the new sites as anything part of minimum viable. But there is an assumption, I think, across the board that quite a bit of the existing functionality on things like catching site wouldn't be taken away, because there's no need to, and there's no need to make a change like that to an existing site and an existing customer experience if there's no actual consideration and need to. So we wouldn't necessarily be committing to taking things away, but we wouldn't be including things like live chat as part of a minimum viable product for these websites from day one.
Thank you, Dan. And then I'm gonna pass over to Debo.
Hi there, everybody. For us this past few weeks, we've been looking at content management and the content management model. Myself and Ali hosted a couple of workshops over the past week, and what we looked at in this workshop was to review all the 7 processes that we had for, the current states of the processes. And though we had a couple of the authorities that had similar processes, we were able to also then discover that there were two models that were being used across these 8 authorities. Can you go to the next slide, please? Connor? Okay. Yeah, so of the 7 processes that we looked at, we realized that there were two models that were being used. A service-led model where all the services had control of both the content writing and the content publishing. This meant that the service writers or publishers in those kind of settings would not have a full understanding of what accessibility is, or might not have a full understanding of what accessibility is. So issues with regards to posting or publishing content onto the website. The second, however, is an hybrid of both the web team having full rights to the publishing and the service areas having their content writers. What this means is the focus in a lot of ways will be around accessibility and writing style, and we needed a bit of accuracy as well, which means there might be a need for a new layer for someone to still triage all the contents that does still go on the website. So those were the sort of things that we discussed this past week, and we were able to also look from this discussion. We were able to draw to draw out what works and what doesn't. And we were able to also look at some of the key areas of improvements for the future. And in terms of what next from here now, we're looking at, I mean, we've started working on the survey for the, to the content writers, as the content writers were not initially in the workshops for the new model that were being discussed, and that would then give us some information as to what to do with regards to the new model that goes out to the public. So yeah, we'll then be able to share it with the content leads and content writers as well. So I think I'll have to hand over to Dan and Lee now. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so during the sprint on a tech side, we've been looking at Drupal. We did a little workshop on Drupal, myself and Lee. It was very interesting to learn what's going to be important on this project and how we configure and set up Drupal. So we reviewed the demo that Lee gave in the last one of these sessions. Lee gave it again in a bit more detail. And I think we're all pretty happy with the content tools that we can set up. So okay hand there. We also have been looking at a project called Local Gov Drupal, which is kind of a product that's being put together by a number of other councils at the moment. It's still in early alpha phase itself, but it looks very promising. So we're looking at ways that we can integrate that, and I'll talk about that more on the next slide in a second. We found out that that workflow is going to be really important, and sort of follows on from what we were just hearing about the content flows and the way that the teams work, but providing good workflow tools is essential. We also know that the CMS is going to have to provide some kind of task management tools, so notifications for when content needs reviewing, for example, or maybe tracking of when content's going to expire, that kind of thing. That the CMS is going to have to help with some of that stuff. So we'll bake some of that into the Drupal build. And we know that making granular controls over who can administer what content is going to be important too. Next slide, please. So I said that we've been looking at another Drupal project. There's a pretty well established and actively developing product at the moment called Local Gov Drupal. It's being put together, I think, by about 10 councils, and it looks pretty exciting. We've got two choices therefore, and we're pretty close to a decision. I think something that Lee and Chris have been working on is deciding which of these routes we'll go down. On the local gov side, the benefits kind of include being part of a bigger community, having access to a predefined information architecture, and kind of being able to access longer term improvement through other people's work, effectively contributing back. So sort of more focused set of goals that they're working on, being able to feed into projects in the future. On the kind of the more traditional side of Drupal, the side that the way we might normally implement it, I've sort of cheekily called it the decent Drupal there. We've obviously got the kind of the increased flexibility and control that you get by building everything, or having everything built from first principles ourselves. We know that the content admin experience is good because we've tested it with you, and obviously we'd have to kind of port that over to Local Gov Drupal, and we know that we can really tailor the approach for when I say the unique circumstances on this project. What I really mean is, and I keep coming back to this, that most council websites aren't founded on the basis of being for 3 or 4 other councils merging together. So although Local Gov Drupal can offer a lot, there's also a whole situation that we're working on here that's that it can't account for. Next slide, please. So we're pretty close to a decision on that. Like I say, what we do know is that whichever of these two choices we take, that there are some things that we are definitely going to have to focus on regardless. So we know that the decision that we've made to decouple the content management system from the front end, from what everyone sees, is a choice that we're still confident in and we're still going to make. So we'll have to do that either way. We know that implementing the content workflow is going to be quite specific to how you want to operate. So that's going to be something we're focusing on. We know that we're going to have to solve that challenge of how do we direct users to existing content on the previous websites, and we know that forms are going to be a big thing. So what's next? We're choosing that flavor of Drupal ideally this week. We're going to complete our systems architecture definition, which basically is just us documenting some of the things that I was talking about, and then we're going to start building. So sprint 3 will be the first time where we actually start putting some code to screen, if you like. There we go.
Great. So I guess you might be wondering what's next. So we just covered what we've achieved in the last 10 days. So we are looking to go into sprint 3, not sprint 2 there, typo, from Thursday the 26th of November, which is today, through to Wednesday the 9th of December. So the next time you'll see us will be on the 10th. I think there should be a placeholder in your diaries. And if they're not, reach out to Juliet and she will forward you the invite for the next show and share. Our goal for this sprint on the right hand side is that we would love to, and we're going to aim towards having the MVP services defined, which is what George alluded to at the introduction, as well as the actual features for January 15, which is going to be the beta that we're aiming to go live with for testing. So we're kind of looking towards January 15 and April 1st as our key deadlines. And then I've just listed it on the side there, won't read out loud, but we're looking at trying to kind of divide and conquer in a way. The core team's quite big and we've all got unique passions and skill sets. So we've got a research stream, a content stream, a development stream, and there's a couple of workshops that the core team have on for next week. One of them is the ETE, which is an acronym for End-to-End Services Prioritization Session, and MVP stands for what a lot of the team have been saying, which is a minimum viable product or minimum viable website. And then we'll have a templates and features definition session. So if you attended the last show and tell, we'd mentioned we'd just kind of had a look at what components and templates we'd be looking to aim for the 2 deadlines. And so we're going to kind of refine them and add some definition to that list. So we have done a lot of talking, and I appreciate there's been a lot of chat happening, but we would love it if you would like to partake in a little audience activity before we go into deeper questions and answers. So over to you, everyone that's on the call. I think there's 36 of you, which will be fab to get 36 responses. So if my colleague Chris or Ale could copy this into the Teams chat, we would like to know what you would like to hear more about in the show and tell. So the show and tell is something that we put on for the team to showcase the work, but we'd really like to know what you'd like us to go deeper in. So there's quite a lot of things to cover. So if you go onto menti.com and you can either memorize that random code or just click the link, hopefully in the chat, and use the code 3439536. You'll be greeted with a screen which you'll need to put that code into, and then you'll be able to basically select in the order of your preference what you'd like to hear about. So I'll see if you can see my other tab. So if anyone's not on mute, if I switch tabs, can you see this? Or are you still on the Google Slides?
Yep, can see that.
See?
Brilliant. So we haven't got anyone yet, but what you will see is once people have logged in and dropped, hopefully you'll see this move to accommodate what the audience is live voting on. There we go. So at the moment we've had 1 response, and the top winner with 1 response. Oh, there we go. They're all moving now. I'll give you some time. This is great. Thank you so much. We've had 7 people respond so far.
This is exciting.
It's a bit of lockdown fun, watching a screen move in real time.
I feel like we should have all placed bets.
So there's a lot of people betting on this.
We got 19 people so far, so I think we had about 35. So it'd be great to get to 25 if possible, and then we can have a bit of a discussion.
Did you put some money on how many people would respond? Chance?
No.
Bets, yeah.
And so just to reiterate, in the show and tell, we will touch on everything that we do, but we might dedicate more time to say the top 3 things that get voted to make sure we keep the people happy. We've got 23 votes so far, so if there's anyone that hasn't done it, you could try squeeze it in.
What does the winner get other than more work?
It's funny that because Chris says that. Chris is our UX UI lead, and he is currently in the first place.
So he's asked all his friends to vote for something else. Yeah.
There's time at the next.
It's when you get more people than are on the call voting that you become suspicious.
I bet you Chris is going on there now and trying to alter it. So it looks like we've got 25 people. This link will be open. So if you've got colleagues that you think would be interested in coming on to the sessions next on the 10th of December, so in the next fortnight, feel free to send them this Menti link with the code. It will be, I think, open for another 24 hours, so we can monitor if it changes. But it looks like right now, it looks like the clear winner is website design, so we can go into a little bit more detail, I think, about that, which Chris will be leading, which I'm not sure, I can't see his face. And then we've got website content, which will be great. That will be from Debo and Ale. I think there's a survey going out today, so keep an eye on your emails for that. And it looks like MVP features for beta has just snuck in ahead of user research and testing with one more participant voting. So I'll take a screenshot of that and share that on our core team Slack channel, so that can kind of be a reminder. But I'll also have a look at it tomorrow once if there's any more last minute invites. So I guess we've finished we've got a bit of time left, so please feel free to raise your hand and I'll get Juliet or Ale to check the chat if there's anything that you want more context on, or any queries, questions or answers. That is it for now. Thank you so much for your time.